winter, people are dying, and only Rose knows why.
You gotta come quick. You gotta come quick and get me.
It's Monster Mondays with me, Geoff Arbuckle. It's Monday, and that so happens to be the day that I like to talk about monsters. Hey everybody, I am Geoff Arbuckle, and this is Monster Mondays presented to you by Film Seizure. You can catch new episodes of Film Seizure with myself and Jason Oliver on Wednesdays, but you know what I'm about to say. Mondays, well, that's the day that I like to talk about monster movies. So, throughout the month of February, I took a look at vampires and the different representations of the mythical creature. In the first 3 weeks of February, I started by talking about the more classical versions, the gothic horror and debonair with Dracula, and the more sexual and homoerotic with the vampire lovers. The third week, I went to Australia to talk about the much-loved Ozploitation flick Thirst, which treated the legacy of an alleged serial killer and possible vampire, Elizabeth Bathory, in a more corporate and global way that features farms designed to help produce blood from quote-unquote blood cows, which are people, to ship all over the world to other vampires. Well, this week, I am going to go to the land of Canada, and Quebec to be more specific, for a look at vampirism as a disease. I'll be talking about David Cronenberg's 1977 masterpiece, Rabid. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying, but wait a minute, Geoff, isn't Rabid a zombie movie? The answer to that is an emphatic no. I don't think it was ever in Cronenberg's mind to tell a zombie story with Rabid. The fact that the rabid people kind of act like zombies turned people into creatures like they are after attacking, and kind of feel a little more akin to George Romero zombies is a little inconsequential here. This is much more of a disease movie and also body horror, and also beautiful woman with phallic stinger thing that comes out of her type of movie. It's Cronenberg, man. It's a lot of things. But let's get back on the vampire track, shall we? Rabid is mostly confused with zombie movies because, as I mentioned, people start attacking others and biting them, which then turns those who are bitten into monsters too. But however, our modern sensibilities of what a zombie is more closely resembles vampirism than the actual zombies that come from Haiti and Africa. The type of zombies we see in popular culture these days are less religious or ritual-based and more vampiric in nature. They are the undead reanimated, and they feed on the living and turn the living into the undead as a result. In many instances, vampirism and reanimation into zombies are usually described in some way as diseases. In one of the older Universal Classic Monsters movies, Dracula seeks a cure for his vampirism, which is treated via blood transfusions that basically remove the sickness of vampirism from his body. Often, the reason for zombies to come back from the dead seem to be some sort of latent disease that activates upon death, or would be logically explained as such. Naturally, the disease could be kickstarted early and faster if you're bitten, etc. So my point is, zombies owe a lot to vampires for their popularity over the last 50 years or so. Rabid is about a young woman named Rose who is injured in a motorcycle accident. She's taken to a plastic surgery clinic, which is the only place that's medically able to help her in an emergency. And the doctor there decides to give her some skin grafts in the hope that the procedure will help heal her damaged flesh and some of her organs. She awakens from a coma after about a month or so, And while she recovers and before she can be discharged, she begins to getting to know some of the other patients at the clinic. As she embraces them, a little stinger pops out from her armpit and sucks blood from them. This also transmits a disease that turns the people rabid. They begin attacking others, biting them, and that, of course, passes along that disease. Rose is able to slip out of the hospital and makes her way back to Montreal. She continues to infect people without her knowing so much what she's doing, and it's like her hunger is blinding her to her own actions. The victims don't have a clear memory of what's happened to them either. So soon an epidemic is basically running wild. Martial law is declared in Montreal, and the whole place is just screwed. Eventually, Rose starts to wonder if she is actually the cause of the problems and tests that theory out by having an infected man in a locked apartment with her. The man wakes up, rabid, of course, and attacks her. And her body is found in an alley the next day and is basically collected by the soldiers who are part of, protecting the city and the martial law, and just tossed in a garbage truck, unawares that she was the original carrier of the disease and could possibly help find an antidote or vaccine. So, with that said, let's talk about those three things that I like about this movie. First, this is a pretty bleak movie. I like to think of it as a perversion of science kind of cautionary tale. In other movies where you might have an epidemic, you'd normally have a conclusion in which the main hero finds a cure and things have a generally upbeat ending. Science kind of caused the problem with some sort of mutation or an accident, and science solves the problem using what else? Science. This movie is all like, well, fuck that. We're not only going to use a newly founded medical science of plastic surgery and make it the cause, or make it cause the problem, and we ain't gonna fix it. You're left wondering if the whole world is basically going to fall apart, or will some sort of cure or vaccine be created to save whoever we can save. It probably doesn't help the general we're fucked mood of the movie by having this take place in winter in Quebec. Things are gray. Things look pretty damn cold. And what is winter usually known for? Things dying. The next thing that I like is that this movie really doesn't have a message. Several movies of this era would have tried to lean into a conversation about social disease or humans playing God with medical procedures to change your appearance or be younger or whatever. Basically, insert message here. You know what I mean. Cronenberg has no problem utilizing themes. Certainly, Rabid could be looked at as an allegory for sexually transmitted diseases or how ill-prepared people might be depending on how powerful a new string of a disease comes along. I don't think anyone will argue that Cronenberg will stick things like this into a movie. And here, I don't feel those undertones nearly as much. I feel like this was just a collection of ideas culled together to simply make a solid horror movie. People are going rabid and eating your goddamn faces off. I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you really need. However, that said, there is certainly one thing you do need in this movie, and that's our lead star, and my third thing that I like about this movie, Marilyn Chambers. Of course, she was mostly known prior to Rabid for being in adult films, most notably Behind the Green Door, which was a gigantic success. Because she was an adult actor, I think it's easy to overlook that she really did have some pretty solid acting ability. She wasn't Cronenberg's first choice, but it wasn't necessarily because she was a porn star. He actually wanted Sissy Spacek to play Rose, but Spacek has a southern accent that, now that I think about it, I don't think she's ever not used in a movie. His choice was vetoed because of that, and in came producer Ivan Reitman, who most people will know from producing and directing Ghostbusters, to make the suggestion based on hearing of Chambers wanting mainstream opportunities, and his thought that it might be easy to market this movie to other areas and countries if they advertised a porn star going legit. Chambers is phenomenal in this movie. She doesn't have a whole bunch of lines compared to some of the other characters, but she has a lot to do in the movie. There is some physicality in the part, and she also has to come off as both appealing and appalling at the same time. She does basically fit the same type of vampiric role that Lugosi and Pitt play in our previously covered vampire movies. She draws you in with allure, but in her case specifically, she's also soft and vulnerable. She doesn't know what she's doing, and she really just kind of see that she's terrified, and you're kind of registering her fear from that. I do not think that Spacek, while maybe a better overall actress, could have brought the same things to the movie that Chambers did. Marilyn Chambers certainly could have had a mainstream career that could have been something big. She did say in an interview at one point when she was asked about wanting to be more mainstream actress, she basically outright said that there was a bunch of stigma that followed her from her hardcore work, and it basically got her blackballed in Hollywood. And knowing the United States' proclivity towards being Puritan in public and perverted in private, I can only imagine what she said and suspected herself was absolutely true. I definitely check out Rabid if I were you. It's fairly easy to find in various formats thanks to Shout Factory releasing it under their Scream Factory label back in 2016. It's also been available digitally through Amazon and streaming on Shudder. Speaking of Shudder, I'd recommend checking out the version with commentary from The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. Joe Bob definitely brings some good perspective to Chambers, Cronenberg, and the production itself. Pretty much anytime you can get extra commentary and reference from Joe Bob, I definitely go for that version. So that wraps up this week's Monster Mondays and our look at vampire movies in February. Until next week, see you later, and don't forget to check out new episodes of Film Seizure each and every Wednesday, and a new installment of Monster Mondays each Monday on filmseizure.com, as well as check out new posts at my website, bmovieanima.com, each Friday morning. So long.
Don't scream. Don't panic. He's dead, and the dead can't hurt the living. Rabid.